going to cue the video for our first vignette and question. We'll have a question for you following the video. Okay.
Well, basically, she got a two-family with a finished basement. I graduated from high school, and I ended up going to Goodwill for the training job. As I worked in the warehouse, I learned doing housekeeping. I worked in the kitchen. I had some case managers help me get the job for Marshalls. Well, I like working there, and it basically learned how to travel, train by myself, and everything. I take the like if I work at Marshalls, I take the bus to Ashmont, and then I take the train. I feel more independent and confident that I can do it. I would like to ask the candidates this: if elected, what would you do to advance the employment of people with disabilities?
Thank you, Lisa, and apologies to the candidates. This monitor is not working, so you didn't have a chance to see the video. I'm sure you heard what Lisa said.
Is Lisa here?
Yes. And Governor Patrick, before you answer, let me just repeat the question at the end of the tape is 60% of individuals with disabilities are unemployed.
Right.
Lisa and others would like to know, what will you do to advance the employment of individuals with disabilities?
Lisa, thank you for the question. I'm sorry I was looking for you because we couldn't see. We don't have a monitor here, so we couldn't see. But I just wanted to direct my answer to you. You know, I don't need to tell you, and I probably don't need to tell anyone in this room, but the issues of employment for people with disabilities are tough when the economy is performing, and when it's in a significant recession like this, it's profound. It's a totally unacceptable unemployment rate. I can tell you a couple of things we've been trying to do. One is through something called the Model Employer Initiative, where we, frankly, in state government and in the executive branch, have been bringing in and made a point of bringing in people with disabilities, really to help folks, first of all, get opportunities to work, but to help the public and those who experience and interact with state government put aside some of their fear and unease about being in the company with people with disabilities. And that's an issue out there. It's an issue among people making decisions about hiring. It's an issue about many people who are interacting with our brothers and sisters who have disabilities. I think the other thing is investing in workforce development, in training. That's something that we have done in this administration. We've applied now for 3 grants through the Federal Affordable Care Act. We hope to get decisions next week to continue that work, because skills-based development is absolutely key to the whole workforce, but in this context, it's for people.
Thank you. Thank you. Jill, 60% of individuals with disabilities are unemployed. Lisa and others would like to know, what will you do to advance the employment of individuals with disabilities?
Well, clearly we need to do much more than what we've been doing. And we can do much more. And of course, it's important for the state not only to set an example, but the state to start raising the bar through its contracting, and to insist that those organizations and businesses we contract with have hiring standards that open the door and that actually bring in the disabled. And I want to also mention that when people with various disabilities, particularly learning disabilities, can't get a high school diploma, this is a terrible strike against anyone, but particularly people with disabilities. And we all know that high-stakes testing and the MCAS is particularly difficult for people with learning disabilities to pass. And to my mind, this really makes the point that you don't want one size fits all, that we need to get MCAS out of the way and stop preventing high school graduation for many students who are qualified and who have done the job, have done the work, have passed all their courses, but just can't pass that particular kind of pen and paper multiple choice test. And we know that without a high school diploma, there are all kinds of jobs that you cannot get. You're basically sentenced to a life of poverty with an income of less than about $11,000. So this costs the state money, as well as really inflicting terrible economic tragedy on many of our students with learning disabilities.
Thank you,
better.
Thank you, Jill. Charlie, your response to Lisa's question.
Thank you, Lisa, for the question. I think one of the first things I'd say is we have to focus on it. And focusing on it means having some sort of process, either once a year or twice a year, where state government, and especially those organizations that are pretty active and aggressive in developing work opportunities for people with disabilities, get together and talk about what the state is doing and what the state can do more of. The other thing I think we should do is we should bring, I think, local governments into this conversation as well. And I also think Jill's idea about engaging the vendor community that does business with state government is another good one. But my view on this one is, until you start collecting information and measuring it and measuring performance and how you're doing on an annual basis or a biannual basis on this one, you're not going to get the kind of focus that we need to apply to an issue like this to create the kind of environment where we can move this number forward. I've in 3 or 4 different roles in life, we've hired organizations that work primarily with people with disabilities to perform a variety of tasks and activities. They won it on a competitive procurement, and they did a fabulous job. And I always came away from that thinking that one of the big issues here is we simply don't give a lot of the organizations who have a lot of folks with disabilities who can play in this space the opportunity to bid and compete the same way other people do. And I think state government, working with local governments and with state vendors, could probably do a lot more in this space. And I'll tell you something, if I win, we will have a biannual conference on this, and we will talk about how we can move this number forward. It's a big problem.
Thank you, Charlie. Tim, what will you do to advance the employment of individuals with disabilities?
Well, I think what government can do is lead by example. We've done some hiring of disabled people at the Treasury and at the State Lottery. They've been amongst our finest employees, and they inspire everyone else in state government and my agency to work harder, because people are reminded every day about how lucky they are. You often hear about the angry state worker or the ungrateful state worker, but every day the state workers at the Treasury and the Lottery understand how fortunate they are to have a job, especially when they work side by side with someone who's disabled. So I think state government can be amongst the leaders in hiring the disabled. We don't need programs for it. We can step up, all agency-wide. And I think that's important. We've done that in a small way in Treasury. I'd certainly love to do that in a much bigger way as governor. I was once said that the best social program of all time is a job. And I truly believe that for all people. The able and the disabled. They need work. Places like Working, Charles River are providing opportunities, and they need to be funded so they can continue to provide opportunities. We educate children, and we're required to educate children, disabled children, handicapped children, until they're 22. We can't cut them loose at that point. We must provide as many opportunities, not just for disabled amongst disabled, but disabled amongst the able, so that everyone gets an idea of what it's like to live, what it's like to work side by side with good, hard-working employees.
Thank you, Tim.